All right, we're live. My guests today are Don Peak and Celeste from Don Peak's Wilderness Adventure. Don, what got you started in researching Bigfoot?
Well, I was kind of thrown into it. I was fishing in southeast Kentucky at a really good smallmouth bass stream, and I'd been there many times before. And but this time I wasn't with my kids, so I thought I was going to go with what I'd do. I camped at the same spot, but I thought I would wade fish and go downstream. And try to find some deeper holes, maybe find some a little bit bigger fish. So I got down about I don't know, a little over a mile, maybe a mile and a little over a mile maybe. And now this is July, beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. Okay, and anyway, I done caught my limit. And I had my stringer on my belt, and I was getting ready to wade back upstream to my campsite. And I had really big rocks come, one of them landed right in front of me. The first one landed right in front of me. And I had several more hit, what have you. And I looked up, I thought, where is this coming from? And I looked up, and I seen another one catapulting across the sky towards me, and I looked into the tree line, and I seen 3 huge human-like silhouettes, and I thought, what in the hell is that? And because these things were huge, and I just just kind of stood there, and one of them walked out towards me, and walked out. I actually walked on the bank of the stream there, and was actually in the water a little bit. I was about 30 feet away from this, this huge human-like creature.
Wow.
And I thought, my God, is that a Bigfoot? Because I'll tell you, Blake, it's like this, man. I never, ever dreamed of seeing a Bigfoot, okay? I never thought of Bigfoot at all, okay? I was one of these people that if you seen something on TV there, I turned it off, or something like that. I just never was interested in it. If they did exist, they was in the Pacific Northwest somewhere, and I just really didn't care.
Right.
And, but anyway, I don't know whether I was more amazed or afraid, because like I say, when you see something like that, that close, and that's something else too, because I actually seen a Bigfoot in full daylight, front view, okay? And they're not big monkeys. I knew that from the start. So, of course, I didn't know about the big controversy until I got into the Bigfoot world about that. But anyway, this thing was, this guy was definitely a male. I'm a former bodybuilder, former gym owner, and all that sort of business, competitor and all that. And I know quite a bit about the human body. And this guy was absolutely just powerfully constructed, okay? Had really thick traps, pectoral muscle tie-ins had great tie-ins, deltoid tie-ins. Arms were massive, the triceps, biceps. The abs, you can see that. Now, this thing's totally hairy, right? I mean, probably got 6-8 inches of hair along.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just breathing, the muscles would flex. The thighs were really huge, and he had green eyes. That's how close I was.
Wow.
And the face was almost totally covered with hair, except for just a small part. And I'd say anywhere from about 8 to 9 feet tall, weighing in about 900 pounds. Just very, very powerfully constructed.
Yeah, that's a pretty massive animal. Or
well, I thought that, I thought, well, this has got to be a Bigfoot. Of course, I didn't know what I was talking about, or thinking anyway. So I thought that, I don't know how long that we looked at each other, but it could have been just 10 or 15 seconds. It could have been for a couple of minutes. I had no idea. And I just took my stringer off, and I went ahead and just threw it towards the, tossed. I didn't throw it at him. I just tossed it over to him, kind of like an underhand toss. And then I thought, well, I got to get the hell out of here. And so, like, this is a real, this stream is really back in the woods. There's no hiking pass on each side of the stream there. So, I had to go back upstream, and, of course, I was in a hurry. And I kept slipping and falling and all this sort of business, and I kept turning around, and I thought, well, I got to get back on the land here. I got to get back in the woods and run and get back to my vehicle. So, as I was going through there, I was thinking, man, suppose my truck don't start. And, I wasn't having any trouble with my truck, but you know how, Murphy's Law, things happen. But anyways, yep. I ended up getting back to my truck and just jumped in there, started ignition, and put it in four-wheel drive, and just like crazy, man. Just
burning rubber and got out of there.
Yeah, and like I say, I made it to Berea, Kentucky, and I went to get some gas, and I was pumping. I went in there to buy it. I went out pumping. Everybody was kind of staring at me. I thought, what are they staring at? I kind of looked down at me, man. I'd been cut really all over the place from going through the briars and the limbs and everything else. And so I got back and I told some close friends what happened, and they said, "Wow, man, you must have seen a Bigfoot." And so I got to talking to other people. I went ahead and contacted some people in some of these groups, and they were absolutely no help whatsoever, none. There was just no help.
Yeah. So, okay, you said you could see its abs and stuff under its fur. That's pretty peculiar.
This thing was extremely. Very muscular,
right?
And very, very thick. Just you could see the oh my God, the trapezius muscles run up from his from the ends of to the end of the clavicles all the way up. And just very, very thick, dense muscle.
Well, and
just rock hard.
Yeah, and someone like you would notice that because you do have experience with bodybuilding and owning a gym, where someone like me probably wouldn't have even looked and just said, "That's a big, huge, hairy beast," and been on my way. But
yeah,
yeah, right. What got me was like how well he stood erect. He was and breathing. You could actually see him breathing, and what have you. I know he looked to the side once. And you could just see like one side of him just kind of flex. Just magnificent, man. I'm telling you. If the guy said he'd win every Mr. Olympia contest coming down the road, man.
I have no doubt. So, you said you could see his eyes. His eyes were, you could see his colors. What makes you think that you said that they're not ape? You think they're more human? Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. To me, it's not even debatable.
Right, you could see it in its face. I mean, they were pretty close. So, what to you? What were your feelings? Did you feel like it was a person staring at you instead of an animal?
I felt like it was something that shouldn't have been there. You know, I felt like it was something that was like maybe from like a primeval past or something, like a giant, something like that, like something out of a fairy tale or a
Right.
Beanstalk type thing. I just
Well,
was just totally. Like I say, I don't know whether I was more scared or whether I was more amazed. You know.
yeah, you're shocked. You're pretty much in shock and awe, and because you've been out in the wilderness all your life, you've been fishing in that area. I'm sure lots of times. So, this concept, was out of your mind. Like most hunters or outdoorsmen, until you actually see one in person or get activity, then it's like a world exploding. And I think it shocks you to the core for sure, because your brain's computing what is actually happening. You have no reference. And
it literally it kind of like laser etched. I'll never forget it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's shared in your memory.
And they could have easily killed me.
Yeah,
and that right there was the really scary part. Was that I didn't really think about that until later on, and I thought if they had wanted to, okay, they could have hit me with one of those rocks, or just walked over there and got me and killed me.
Yeah, you were that close. I mean, even a bear that close could have easily charged you within seconds, and you would have not have the time to get,
but
to react.
They wanted the fish.
He was looking at me as hard as I was looking at him. I mean, he was just, it's hard to put into words. He was, I mean, I was looking up at him, and he was looking at me, and it was like he probably thought I was so in. I was probably taking her fish. Probably what the deal was. I would imagine that they probably noodle or make traps in the in the waterway or something, get fish. Yeah. Here I had some fish,
Well, you made their work easy for them.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think that helped cement your safety on the way out. Like, oh, this guy gave us some fish. Let's not really mess with them,
I guess I gifted for the first time in my life.
Right, and
they probably wondered where you were the next week.
Yeah, well, I didn't go back for a while.
I was gonna say, yeah. So, I guess now, how long before you started your group after this? Because I mean, obviously that cemented you the real.
Right after I found out that I couldn't get any help from anybody.
Right.
It was really clear to me after talking to a few group leaders, talking to a few people online, talking to a few people on the phone, talking to a few people in person, that just because I didn't see something that looked like a silverback gorilla, I didn't see what I seen. Okay, I had such stupid statements, Blake. Stupid statements. Okay, and I really get kind of upset about it, because I was told, well, Don, what you seen was 3 trees. What you seen was 3 tree stumps. What you seen was 3 giant naked hairy hippies. Just stupid, dumbass remarks.
It's kind of degrading, especially to what you've seen and your reputation, especially as people who have experience or even hunters. Anyone who goes out in the woods. It's just for someone else to say, you've seen trees or this is that. That's when they weren't even there. It's very to put down for sure.
It was like I told him I was about 30 feet away, broad daylight.
Right.
You know?
And that's too sensational for some people to accept.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people never seen a Bigfoot. I know two of these people that I've talked to and some of my group have talked to have actually told us that they have never seen one. Now, the thing is that one of them still on his group page still claims he tells everybody he has seen a Bigfoot, even though he's told us he hasn't. So, I mean, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. I guess you can say whatever you want to say, lie out your behind. I don't care. But the thing is, though, is that when I found out that these people weren't going to be any, I need some answers, Blake. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What they were, you know, where they came from, and why they were there. You know, because I knew what I seen. You know, and what I seen was truly magnificent. So, I mean, it's just, and then, of course, I realized that there was a big controversy, you know, the great ape theory, the big monkey myth, and all this sort of business. You know, I didn't know about that until I got into the Bigfoot movement a little bit, you know. So then I realized, well, that's why I couldn't get any help from these people, okay? And I figured that most of them never seen a Bigfoot anyway, you know. So I mean, it's just, or at least up close. I could see how somebody, like, if you see the backside of one, a fleeting glimpse of one, you might think it's some kind of an ape. Okay.
Right.
And when you get a really good view of one, there is no doubt in your mind, you know, this is some kind of a human being, you know. And then, of course, I got into more. I got more people into you know, into my group. We created a team and that sort of thing, and we just you know, we just went on from there, and we just kind of ignore everybody else. You know, the other groups and stuff. You know, and the conferences. I think we went to a couple of conferences at the very beginning, and that was ridiculous too. And so we just decided, you know, crap on the conferences and all that sort of business. But you know, the thing is like there were so many things that they were wrong about. So many things. You know, we went out and got books. I went to bookstores and got old books on Bigfoot. I ordered new books on Bigfoot. I mean, I got one of the best Bigfoot libraries you've ever seen. And I tell you what, and almost all of it in those books are wrong. Every bit of information, I mean, I don't get it, Blake. I really don't. You know, people generally write books about topics they know something of the subject matter. You know, but some of these books are absolutely, totally wrong about everything. That just blew my mind. And blew the team's mind.
Well, you know, a lot of it, I think, a lot of it's everyone's theory, you know, and what happens to them out there. And I guess, you know, people find different things, people see different things, and so they come to their own conclusions. And, you know, a lot of the older books are the gold standard, they say, you know, but it seems like some of them are wrong, or they, like, for instance, the stick structures, that was never reported back in the heyday with some of these books are made. That's more of a newer thing.
Yeah.
So
we're starting to notice those now, that what made these, what possibly could be out here and made it to make them.
So Celeste, when did you get started in Don's team? You know, how did you get started? And
on Don's team?
Yeah, and what was your first encounter with Bigfoot? Like, what for you, and what cemented that it's real? And then when did you join up with Don, or how did everything happen?
Well, my encounters have come from a very early age. Being a child, my father had hunting property in central New York, and then in northern central New York, almost to Canada, they had a cabin on a lake, which was very rural, Relatives lived there, so we were always either one place or the other every weekend. So in both places, I've had encounters at a very young age. So there was nothing anyone could say to me as a child to comfort me or to convince me they didn't exist. They could say what if all they wanted, but as a child, I knew what I saw, and I knew they were there. And here, you know, as a child, you're trying to warn your family. There's a big standing hairy creature out there, but you know, who listens to a child?
Well, take us through us. What exactly happened? How old were you, and
Well,
what happened?
the one that happened when I was older than the first one, which was, well, it was a summer day. My brother and I were playing near a creek in the woods that was near my dad's hunting property, but it was kind of across this washed out dirt road, and so we were just playing in the creek and doing what kids do, and you know, just enjoying the pleasant day. And I remember this chill coming over me from like my toes to the hair on my head, just this chill. And I remember looking kind of up the hill, and my brother's still playing in the creek, and he's younger than I am. And I remember looking up the hill and just seeing this kind of dark thing kind of go side from one foot to the other, side to side, just kind of rocking side to side between these trees, just kind of standing there watching us. I don't recall seeing any facial features or anything, but I remember it dark. It was very dark. And just kind of, I remember thinking it took the whole sunshine away. You know, all the sunshine was gone. And just this chill, just deep chill into my bones. And I stepped back to kind of cover where my brother was. And I don't think he doesn't have a recollection of ever seeing it or anything. And he just kind of stood up, startled, and said, "I'm not comfortable here anymore. We need to go back." And that's what we did. We ran. He got a head start and got ahead of me, which was fine because I would have worried a whole lot if he was behind me. Not that I would have. But we were running. And then once we got out of the woods and hit the property, the hunting property, which was kind of like an old hayfield that was left to fallow, you know, we felt safer because we were out in the sunlight. But I remember the chills, and I remember the darkness. It just seemed like it blocked the sun. So to a child, you know, that is scary, intimidating. And also having my little brother there, you know, you feel like you need to protect him. But as far as I can remember, it never made a move towards us. It just stood there watching us with the sun in its back. So it just like, I remember the feeling. I was cold and chilled, and that it blocked the sun. And, you know, I tried to talk about it, try to ask different things. But again, you know, who listens to a child? But they never convinced me that I saw anything else. And interestingly, on that property, my dad owned it up until probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. He had a sighting there, and he didn't tell me about it until a few years ago. But he was up there repairing the roof to the hunting trailer, and he was with an uncle, and he sees this woman kind of come out of the woods, and he's like, "What's this woman doing in a fur coat coming out of the woods?" And he points it out to my uncle, and they get the scope, and they look through it, and they see a big, hairy, very dark beast coming out of the woods picking berries. Didn't see them or didn't smell them. They probably downwind. But it just was, he said it was just going along picking berries, because you had briar patches, and we always picked berries. It was just all wild. And there was an old orchard that was there too. So he had a sighting there, and he told me about it years later. I'm like, you could have told me that when it happened. I would have felt better. But
right. And he said it was a woman. A woman came out.
because he
Pretty
saw the
definitive.
and I think when he got the scope, not that he could tell features, but to him it looked like a woman with a fur coat on.
Is it long hair? She had long
Yeah.
hair, or
Body wise, it was long hair
body wise. Yep. Interesting.
and black, you know, like the one I saw.
Right. You know, so people are going to say, well, how you know it wasn't a bear? You know, if a bear's that close to, you know, some kids, I would think, you know, it's a pretty dangerous
Well,
situation.
if it's a bear, we were an easy meal.
Yeah, it, you know, especially a black bear, they do prey on humans, so the kids would be easy meals.
And this, as a child, this was much larger than bear. I mean, you know, I knew what bear looked like. I knew. I mean, I was raised in the woods. I mean, you know,
Right.
one place
And,
or another. I knew what nature was around me. I knew what
well,
to.
it changed your life, and you were so certain about what you seen that you're still actually doing it. You're out in the woods looking
Well,
for the truth of what you've seen, and
there was never any way anyone convinced me what I didn't see. And
yeah.
for me, that's a lot of it. You could not tell me what I did or didn't see. And I'm still that way today. If I see something, and Don knows this, I will question things. I will question people's sightings, you know, or things like that, because that's just what I do. I'm curious. I want to know, and I want to make sure they know what they saw and that I can confirm what they saw from evidence.
Yeah.
Now, we've had different things happen at that place over the years. It's in the middle of the woods. We would have the outhouse knocked over. Every spring, we had to go put the outhouse back up. The door was pulled off. Different things always happening, and my dad's always blamed, you know, the kids. Well, there's no kids there, you know. So I don't know if he was saying that to make us feel better, you know, that it was the blank kids doing
Well,
this.
you know, he had his sighting, so I'm sure after that point he probably knew and figured out some of the, maybe even he had more experiences and indications of things going on, because that's, you know, that happens. People don't realize they're out there. Like Don, you know, he's been out in the woods all his life. You guys too, till bam, it happens. So how did Don get a hold of you and you join his team?
Well, I noticed on Facebook, these groups started popping up, Bigfoot groups. And so, you know, over the years, I've had different things happen. So I was like, you know, it'd be nice to talk to someone about my experiences. So I would just kind of curious about different groups and join them and whatnot and see what people had to say. And a lot of it was, you could tell they really didn't have sightings, or they didn't really have a background of knowing what to look for. So, you know, I'm in and out of groups, not finding anyone I can really talk to about it. And then it just so happened that on one of the groups, Don had made a commented on somebody's post, and I was like, you know, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of agrees with what my thinking is on that subject. So I kind of messaged Don, and, you know, I had different sightings and different pictures of tracks and whatnot, and would he like to take a look at them and stuff like that. And then we just kind of went from there, you know, just kind of agreed with a lot of what he said. And it seemed genuine and sincere. And he took a look at my pictures and, you know, said, I don't think those are those are Bigfoot. Those might be dogman pictures, which I didn't even really know about dogmen at the time. I really was just trying to ignore that whole aspect of cryptids.
Right, it's a little bit more on the extreme side, but so
and
so
then
go ahead.
Well, and then somebody had commented to my son that they hit something on the way to work, and it was really huge, and there was still hair on their vehicle. So I got hold of Don and asked him if he knew anyone that could test this hair sample, if I can get my hands on it. Because the person just described a huge, it was upright and walking, they hit it with their car as it was running across the road into the woods.
Wow.
It left a big dent and a hair sample on their car. So I was trying, because it's third person, I'm trying to get hold of my son to get hold of this person so I get the hair sample. And Don said he did have somebody that could check the hair samples. So that's kind of how we started really talking, and that's how I became a team member, is really from that incident.
Yeah.
Which I never did get the hair sample. Someone else, I think the person's uncle got it because he wanted, I guess he had an interest in Bigfoot, and I don't know if he ever did anything with it, but yeah, that's how it happened. Just kind of became part of the team after talking to him and telling him all my experiences and what happened and whatnot, and realizing we agree with a lot of the things, that we've observed and researched and found evidence of.
Yeah, because you guys are out in the field all the time. I know, Johnny, especially now you're more on the retirement side, but you're still out in those woods like a full-time job practically. I mean,
Yeah.
What have you guys experienced when you guys have planned these trips? Because I know you guys are in a few different states. You're always somewhere gorgeous, beautiful, and it's very squatchy. So,
Yes.
what have you guys experienced?
Well, Don can read the land and kind of figure out where to go and where to set up camp and how to how to just tell where they're going to be. And so if he can put me in a spot like that, I can usually find the evidence. But they kind of like to come into the campsite is what we figure mostly on. I think he's just so good at what he does that he puts us right in the middle of it all. And they end up coming through the campsite. Huh, Don?
Yeah, what I do, Blake, is I use what I do is we investigate and research a lot. We look through the news media and eyewitness accounts. We interview people, and then I use topo maps. You wouldn't believe how much I use topo maps and Google Earth. And what we do, what we're interested in is Bigfoot habitat areas, whether they're year-round habitat areas or whether they are temporary, seasonal habitat areas, and we also like to investigate Bigfoot travel corridors. Okay, we're not really interested in the like I get. You wouldn't believe the phone calls and the emails and stuff like that I get from people that they have Bigfoot and they might skirt their farms or something like that. They have a structure here or there, that type of thing. I'm not really interested in that. Okay, what we're interested in, we want to learn about the Bigfoot, and I think that the habitat areas is both the year-round and the seasonal and the travel corridors are what we're basically interested in. And to do that, you need topo maps and what have you. And it's like I said, like I tell people, I say, if you're going to catch fish, you got to be where the fish are at. 90% of it are in 10% of the water, man. You can't wish them there. The same thing with Bigfoot, okay? They're liable to be anywhere. I'm not arguing that point. They're liable to be anywhere. But what I'm saying is that where do they spend 90% of their time? Where do they raise their families at? You see, that's what we're interested in.
And we have found smaller tracks. And we've actually had, and we've actually had what sounded like children.
Absolutely.
We've been in the thick of it. Have I seen a young one? No, I haven't. I would love to. I mean, I would absolutely love to see a young one. But I've heard them. We've heard
them crying.
Yeah, sound like a child crying.
Yeah.
Really?
And we've actually seen their tracks, and and what have you. And it's like I just put out a video today, and you know, like I said, you know, a lot of these tracks, you know, like we've seen them anywhere from maybe 7 to 8 inches or smaller to, you know, anywhere from 17 to maybe 21, 22 inches. Okay.
Wow.
And, I mean, big ones, heavy, you know, and then we've seen some, you know, were maybe made by a Bigfoot, maybe 5, 6, 7 foot tall.
And this is in December. So anyone who says, "Oh, it's a child walking around," really, no.
Right. Yeah. You know, finding tracks in winter. You know, it's someone barefoot out there in the middle of the woods.
Right.
And where snow's at. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
That happened.
15 degrees out there.
Yeah.
Everything else. So I mean, you know, I mean, we go out in all kinds of weather, Blake. I mean, we've been out there. You wouldn't believe the weather we've been in. Well, you probably will, because I've seen some of your tapes, your videos. You get out there too. You know, you have to get out there.
I try.
You know, but
well, and they will.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
If you just go out there and be, you know, you're not out there making noise. You're not out there trying to call them. You're not out there doing wood knocks. They will come in. You know, huh?
Yes.
They will.
They are. They're very curious, and the more time you're out there, the better chances you are. And you know, for me, you know, they're usually in different spots, but you know, you hang around the general area. Eventually, you know, they'll come across you, and it's up to them whether or not they want to mess with you or do something. Or so it's, you know, it's good luck and being in the right spot at the right time. But you have a few different groups and stuff, because I know you guys have a lot of evidence. I actually came across you guys' group. Oh man, it must have been 3 years, I'm guessing now. Whenever you started it, the Facebook group, I'm guessing. You guys have been in the woods in some gnarly places, and I mean, it's amazing, you know, how long you guys are in these areas. But you guys have found like kill areas with lots of bones. You have lots of tracks, stick structures.
Yeah, you know, like we don't even count if we don't find tracks in or near structures. We don't even count the structures. We don't even take pictures of the structure. Okay, and you know, the thing is, if somebody finds, you know, like a habitat area, you're liable to find dozens of structures, you know. And Celeste will tell you, we have been in habitat areas, I mean, where the ground is just pummeled with tracks, with Bigfoot tracks, and structures everywhere. Yeah, you know,
that was pretty amazing when we walked up on all those structures in one spot, and a lot of that had to do with, honestly, with my dog, because I wasn't going to go in that direction, and he just was curious enough that he wanted to go, so we went. And then that's the really big structure we walked up on, but then we walked up on all those little ones, almost like if you find a clear area where there's no sticks on the ground, that's a sign too, you know. And people, I don't think, recognize that or realize that, but if you walk up on an area that looks like it's been cleaned
up,
you know, that's a sign too, because they use that and they lean the sticks up against trees, whatever the reason is, we don't know yet. We do know they use the structures for something, but we don't know when they do all these like TP structures, when they're leaning and balancing sticks in certain ways, or put them in the ground upside down, whatnot. I mean, honestly, maybe that's just a game they play. I mean, I don't know what those would be used for. Now, when you see the structures that are like woven and closed in, I mean, that could be a hunting blind, that could be, you know, just a stop, you know?
Yeah, because there's a lot of different structures. There's even just a single tree branches and trees sometimes, but sometimes more of the hut structures. I think they just are blinds basically. It just breaks out their outline, if anything, because they're not shelter worthy. They're not keeping the weather out or anything, but
No.
they break up your outline pretty good.
Yep.
Give you a place to look.
Funnel areas and ambush areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always along a path or something, or a place where they could bust out and get game.
And exactly, because we did walk up on that, after a night of what we heard.
Yeah, it's a Bigfoot deer drive.
Yeah. I mean, it was horrible to listen to when they started fighting with the coyotes, because there was just screaming on both ends. I mean, you just heard this blood-curdling roar, like just this deep reverberating, shaking the ground. And then you hear the coyotes just like screaming, and you could
the coyotes were losing. Let's put that way.
Yeah, definitely. But the next day is where we found the tracks that all pointed to a deer drive.
Yeah. They had literally funneled deer through this bottleneck, and you could see where the deer had been running, and you could see where the Bigfoot was after him too.
Because all the deer tracks were
just incredible.
Yeah, were of running deer, and then the Bigfoot tracks were parallel to them, and then they crisscrossed. I mean, it was just that was a hard night to sleep.
I bet.
No.
It was like, my God, what's going on out here,
And you just hunkered down. I mean, really, you were hoping they didn't come closer.
Well, they are so powerful, and they are intimidating, especially when you hear them out there and you know how close they can get to people, and you can't see them.
Exactly.
You can't sense their presence until they're close. They're doing something, and they have to catch deer with their hands. So they're hiding. They're experts at being still and just watching. They're like the ultimate survivalists.
Yeah, they're stealth hunters.
Last spring,
Yeah, they just sit there. How many hours of practice and the willpower it takes to just sit there and be eaten by bugs, everything crawl over you, the wind, the weather, everything, just until your prey comes or whatever, you get your opportunity. You're literally waiting for the opportunity to happen, and then they take it.
And if that were our livelihood, we would too, if we had to depend on. But the example of how still they can stand was driven home to me last spring when it was a full moon. I had actually just left the tent to answer the call of nature, come back in and couldn't go back to sleep. So I was looking at the full moon through the trees. It was really pretty, just moonlight shining through the trees. And I was just kind of contemplating, the days finding the tracks or whatnot, just thinking about everything we found that day. And everything was so still, looking at it through the trees. Well, lo and behold, one of those trees walks away.
Wow.
Well, I mean, because my tent flap was closed, so it was just the moonlight and the shadows of the trees on my tent. And it literally walked away, not a sound. And it was so close to my tent. Not a sound, nothing. Silently just pivoted, moved, and walked away. Well, was it there when I went to the bathroom and I never saw it? Because the next morning I heard Don out, doing something with the fire pit. And so I just kind of said to him, I said, something was outside the tent last night and was standing there, and then it walked away. I said, are there any tracks? And sure enough, there was a track right there by the fire pit, not 7 feet from my tent.
Yeah.
So I'm racking my brain, like I had just gone to the bathroom, couldn't go back to sleep. Did I walk by this in like a sleepy stupor or something? I didn't smell anything. I didn't hear anything. And yet it just silently walked away.
Bigfoot remind me of deer in a lot of ways. How sometimes you'll be out deer hunting, and you might be up in a stand, and all of a sudden a deer just appears. You don't hear it or anything. There it is.
Oh.
Then other times, they just make a lot of noise. They just come crashing through the woods and what have you. But deer, Bigfoot remind me of deer in that respect. They can be so quiet.
Exactly. I know what you mean. I've experienced, with deer. One minute you're looking down, next, and there's 5 or 6 in front of you. It's like, where'd they come from? And Bigfoot are exactly the same way, or even more. And they do. You hear it all the time. They stand by the tents. They watch you, and they're messing with the tents, throw rocks in the tents. But just
back several years ago, before Celeste became a member of the team, me and 3 other individuals, the team was camping out, in this Bigfoot area, and we were talking, and by the campfire and all that sort of business, just talking, shooting the bull about what happened during the day, and all of a sudden, and then right out of nowhere, this juvenile Bigfoot, about 5, 6 foot, between 5 and 6 foot tall, weighing in at about maybe 350, 400 pounds, just let out the most ungodliest scream you ever heard. And we don't have no idea how long that Bigfoot was standing there, but it was standing just in the shadows, in between 2 tents. And all of us turned around like, what in the hell? And it sounded like a mixture between a wildcat and a woman. And then all of a sudden, man, it run off, and it was, how a deer will zigzag back and forth.
Yep. And
it was zigzagging back and forth between, through the bushes, the trees, and all that sort of thing. But you don't know, like, they'll come right up into camp. They'll come right up in there. Now, me and Celeste, we actually was it January? Was it this year or last year, Celeste?
It was last year.
Yeah, and we actually heard the Bigfoot sloshing around out there close to the tents, and sure enough, there was one probably about, I ain't kidding you, about 10, 12 feet away.
Wow.
7 foot tall, standing by a tree, and then I told Celeste, I said, my God, there's one right over here, and it had just went right down the side of the hill, and
well, that was the weekend that was the worst weather that was horrible weather. But
was there rain?
It was rain, sleet, wind, thunder, lightning. It was everything.
Yeah.
But the reason why we stayed is because when we first got to this site, we saw such large amount of tracks and also such huge tracks. I mean, we knew there was a big one in the area. I mean, this track was so huge, and it had been standing where it was standing for so long in the mud that you could see the hair indentations in the mud from the track. And then we found a bed too that
we sure did.
And the bed actually wasn't far from where our tents were.
It wasn't
far at all. So we knew we were right in the thick of it and right in the middle of it. So we were expecting to hear something, but with all the weather, we weren't sure. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, the tent flooded. It was just terrible weather. But we had put a digital recorder on the wheel well in my car to see if we could pick any sounds up, which we really weren't thinking of getting anything because you could hear nothing but rain and wind.
Right.
But actually, you can hear when it had come into the campsite, stopped, and then you can hear it slosh back out, and you just hear this sloshing. This just like it was stomp. You know how like a child will stomp its feet in a puddle, and
yeah, and you guys could hear it from the tents. You said so.
We got it on the digital recorder too.
And that's awesome. And obviously, to me, it wanted you to hear that.
Yes.
These things only make themselves known when they want you to know. They don't have to, because most of the time, like you said, they're up right next to the tent.
Yeah.
They don't have. They can sneak back in the woods. They don't have to scream and run away and make a big showboat. They don't have to slosh around. They don't. They can do whatever they want.
That particular location is
Yep.
is a habitat area. That whole area is just inundated with structures, tracks of all sizes, Bigfoot tracks of all sizes.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible spot, man.
It's definitely a place I want to return to because I want to check, structures and whatnot that we found last time and kind of compare them.
Yeah, some were being built.
Yeah.
While we were there, I mean, we didn't see them building, but they were being built, and it was like a Bigfoot village, man. It was pretty great.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you ever find like maybe some logs or sticks on the ground where the deer are funneled through, where the deer have to stop or jump, and they can't run straight. They have obstacles or landmines in their way. Do you find any things like that?
Now that I think about it, yeah, you do find that, but I guess at the time I wouldn't attribute them to Bigfoot. But that makes sense that they would do that.
In some areas, where like the air is cleaned up a bit, and there's
yeah.
Sometimes I found one particular area where it seemed like things were stacked, and it seemed like it would be a good place where a deer would trip and break its leg.
That's a good point. I mean, that very
while
well
being chased, because it was on a trail, and then there's a little like hut structure thing where you could sit in and hide, and then reach out and grab.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all theories and stuff. We're all speculation, but we are finding these structures out there. I mean, and they're pretty intricate. They're broken off, twisted, or some are massive logs that are jabbed into the ground or stuck up in trees, or different types of trees, like a pine tree that's found where there's oaks and maples.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, we've seen where they actually decorated a tree.
Yeah.
Where they had pine cones and an oak tree.
It was almost like, somebody was hanging something there for a reason or something.
And animals don't do that. A bear's not going to do that. Squirrel is not going to be decorating the tree. And so that's abnormal.
Yeah.
But some non-believers or some of the people would say, it's just a bear, it's just a raccoon. But really, there isn't anything out there
These were 7, 8, 9
doing
foot
that.
off the ground. The limbs were. So it wasn't people that was put the
Right.
pine cones in the oak tree.
Exactly. It comes down to it. There's only one thing out there, especially when you're having these experiences. There's only one thing creeping up to your tent, standing still, walking, or slushing our way on two legs and bipedally. It's not a bear. Bears don't do that.
And not awkwardly. I mean, what was outside the tent was silent, deliberate, and just walked with a purpose, not meandered like it was looking for something or trying to sniff something out.
It definitely knew we were there.
Yeah, oh yeah, and
Yeah.
And when we figured it out in the morning, compared to the other tree I was looking at, that was closest to us, to where this one was, that I thought was a tree, but it wasn't. It had to have been like 10 feet tall, is what we figured, but it wasn't where I can say, oh, it was burly or thick or anything like that, because its silhouette on the way it was standing, however particular angle it was standing at, to me, in my mind, with the shadow on my tent wall, looked like a tree. So
exactly.
Well,
that's what they're trying to emulate. That they try to be trees. That's
exactly.
What.
Still.
There's no telling how many times. I've often thought, as much as I fish. Going back into, I like to fish. I like to fish everywhere, but there's no telling how many times I may have passed a Bigfoot, because because they just stand still or squat down or something. A deer. A lot of times you won't see a deer until an ear flickers or a tail flickers or something like that.
A little bit of movement. Exactly. That's what we're looking for, especially when you're hunting. You're looking for that movement, and if nothing moves, that glass over.
Like I remember when I was with my kids, several times we run across a structure somewhere, and we would kind of look at it and we'd think, why would anybody come down here or up here and build something like that? It must be a troop of Boy Scouts or something, you know. And and then just kind of just forget about it and walk away, you know. But now I know what happened, you know. And a lot of, like some of the things, we wouldn't run across them all the time. Of course, we wasn't looking for them or anything, but you know, we'd be here or there and run across something like that, and then we just scratch our heads wondering why would anybody build something like that out here? You know.
Exactly. You try to chalk it up as something else, like Boy Scouts, or it's storm damage, snowfall, whatever. But you know, sometimes you can tell. Even people are skeptical. It just doesn't seem right. You know, it's weird, and
Right.
it's amazing. Hopefully we could find out more and maybe get some video, because there's never been video of or even an encounter supposedly of Bigfoot making tree structures. No one's, I guess, ever seen one actually start making one, but to me, I think they're making them. I've had some interactions where, you know, certain trees are placed in a spot where those trees don't grow.
Right. And they do carry them from different areas, and the
They
way
do.
they balance them and whatnot, just, it amazes me. And I am so excited whenever I see one.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's complicated too. I mean, and it's a mystery. Because we don't know what they are. A lot of people think they mean this, they mean that, but it's complicated because they are construction in them. So it does have a lot meaning to them. But figuring it out, I think it's going to take a lot of effort and years.
Well, I'm up for it.
Yeah. So, you've had these close encounters. Have you ever felt like in danger, or like have you had any aggressive actions happen to you guys? Like, because you have a dog in the field, you guys have grouped, you guys are armed. You know, you're camping there. So, like, have you ever?
The only time I've ever had anything thrown at me is when I've had Ari with me. They did not like the fact that I had my dog, and this was a second time to this area, so they knew who I was, and they recognized me, but they did not like the fact that I brought my dog.
Yeah, they threw a lamb all the way across a fire lane.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he started ducking. It was almost like he knew something was coming, because he ducked back. You know, he's a big German Shepherd, so not much scary. But he ducked back and like recoiled to me, and then we hear a rock hit the ground right where he was standing. So it was like he knew something was coming, and then you just hear he backs up, and then you hear a thud, and I'm like, well, we need to get Ari out of here, because they really did not like that I brought my dog. In fact,
it's a big dog, German Shepherd, and they're beautiful dogs, and they're smart dogs too. And I think that the Bigfoot are probably intimidated because dogs go after things. They know most dogs probably will get off a leash or go after them, because they go after deer, squirrels, you know, untrained dogs.
Yeah.
So they probably realize that there's potential this dog's going to get away from these people. It's going to come after me
and
or the young ones.
Exactly, and they were being protective, which is what we would do.
Yeah, and they're giving a warning, and basically, you know, this is not okay. And now, have you been back in the area since then?
No, I have not. And I think the next time I go out, I'm going to leave Ari home, just because I want that interaction, because I want to know more, and I want to be able to trust me.
Now, how does he? You know, you said he was ducking and stuff, but does he ever bark or freak out or anything? Or
the only time he barked, and this is in the same spot, he literally. Actually, no, this was a different time. He literally in the tent stood over me and barked towards the woods. And then Don had said from his tent, he goes, I heard what he's barking at, because I was asleep. And the next thing I know, he's standing over me, you know, barking at the back of the tent towards the woods. So he heard or sensed or smelled something that I didn't, but Don did too, because Don actually, from his tent, he's like, Celeste, I heard, you know, whatever it is he's barking at. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, and the funny thing about that is that's the night where we heard a young one sounding like a baby crying.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that was really weird. That was weird.
But the funny thing about that, and I think it's funny, but there were a couple women camping near us on one side, and then through the woods on the other side, there was a group of like young men, college age type, you know, group of men. And they came and they had set up like the Taj Mahal. I mean, they had everything. They had hammocks, they had things hanging in trees, whatnot. They were set up to stay. And you could just tell they had beds, they had everything. Well, the morning after the night of the sound of the baby crying, the next morning, were driving down the dirt road. They must have thrown everything into garbage bags because they had the garbage bags all lined up on the hood of their cars, and they had their arms out the cars holding the garbage bags on top of their cars. They had beelined it out of there, didn't even pack anything up, just threw it in garbage bags and drove.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting. And you know, how many times has it happened? And the question is, did they think it was a Bigfoot? Did they think it was something else? You know, it spooked them. Something spooked. Maybe they had activity.
They lived like a bat out of hell, I'll tell
They
you
did.
that.
And then we discovered that the girls must have been gone for a while. So
Yeah, they left during the night.
Yeah.
And you know that it happens all the time. They get curious, and there's, you know, food's almost available, and they want to check out who's in their spot. And sometimes they don't want you there.
You'd want to know who's on your property.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's what they do. They observe everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or especially if they're on someone else's property, private property, or they find an old lady who lives out there. That's probably the best place to find them. A little old lady who has like 1,000 acres or more, and they know no one goes there except for maybe hunting season.
But you know what?
Only a month or so period.
They're going to take care of that little old lady.
You know what? They probably would. Honestly, take a liking to her, and
yeah,
because you do hear about Native American stories of them helping and saving people. I mean, you hear bad stories too, but I think they're kind of individuals. They're not animals. It seems like they are people. They are intelligent, and they make their own choices.
But you know, Blake, we got run out of a couple places. Not me and Celeste, but me and some other members of the team. You know, where they were, you know, particularly aggressive. You know.
Did you feel your life was in danger?
Like if we go to a place like that, then we don't push it.
Right.
You know, we just go ahead and move on out. You know, we don't go with it. I don't go back. That's just the way it is. You know. Yeah,
you want to try to be respectful, for sure. So you say you don't go back. Now, how do you feel about trying to go back and maybe trying to be more respectful and earning a type of trust?
You can't be no more respectable than we are. We don't scream, holler, beat on trees, none of that nonsense.
Right.
You know, we go in, like we either backpack in or we go ahead and set up camp close to where we're going to go and day hike in or whatever, you know. And but you can't get no more polite than we are. Like if they're real aggressive, then we don't fool with it.
Yeah.
You know,
you don't want to put your luck.
Yeah.
You definitely don't. And I guess it's better to put all your coins into a spot where they have better interaction. You know, maybe it's gonna be easier to get over that trusting hump. Do you think
that some are just aggressive? I think that it might be their clan or maybe they've had some bad experiences, bad interactions with people.
And I'm sure that happens all the time, or it has happened. Even, you know, generations. They obviously realize what guns are, what weapons are.
Most are very curious,
but they still get right up close to people, even if guns are involved. They get right up close. Sometimes they're not afraid to even show you who's boss.
Well, and if you think about it, if you look how big they are and and think about how big their heads are and everything, they are intelligent. They do have reasoning capabilities, and so I think they can kind of figure out who's friend and who's foe and who means to hurt them and who doesn't. And it's like, I if you look, research different animals and their behaviors, like elephants. Elephants can recognize the language of people who've been known to hunt them, and they will avoid them.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say that they can't recognize people who are out to do no good to them? We don't really know. Right now, it's all theories and conjectures and guesses. And
It is, but they obviously observe us all the time. That's the only way they survive. It's the only way they can, and they choose to interact.
They observe us a whole lot more than we observe them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But how do you think that's going to change? How are we supposed to get them on camera, or like how are we actually going to have a sit down interaction or Jane Goodall moment?
I'm working
Maybe
on
they're not apes, but still had to have that interaction of when they're 20 feet away. We have them on camera and we're interacting.
I'm working on it. I definitely.
And so is a lot of people.
They seem to. It seems wherever I go, and honestly, wherever I go, I seem to have some sort of reaction from them, or they let me know they're there, or something.
They're drawn to you. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's.
They really are.
I was talking to Don, just sitting outside talking to Don, and I live in a rural area, but I have homes around me, and there was a tree knock. And he heard it through the phone. I was like, "Whoa, did you hear that?" And he's like, "Yeah, I heard it. It was a loud tree knock." And then there's been tracks, near where I live. It doesn't seem to matter where I go. I've lived in many different states. I've been to many different places, and I can always find something where one has been, or evidence of one. Even staying in a little cabin one time to use the restroom. We weren't far from it, but there was a building nearby, and there's just a little cabin, at a privately owned campground, and it had one single light between the cabin and the bathroom. So I had my young son, and my ex was with me, and so I was like, well, I've got to go to the bathroom, so you can stay here with him and I'll go. Well, go out the door, and just outside of the light, where the light shines, just outside of it, something just started screaming at me. It was like I surprised it. When I came out of the cabin, I surprised it, and it just let out this blood-curdling scream that was so loud. I was between the cabin and the bathroom, so I just ran for the bathroom.
You still have to go, right? You have to go even more.
I was like, and then I'm like, is it safe to come out? It's like, can I get back to my cabin? But it just let out this, I must have just surprised it when I came out, and it acted surprised. So I knew, but the dogs were calm. The dogs weren't scared or anything. It was almost like they knew it was there. And I must have just surprised it and shocked it when I just walked.
It probably thought you had seen it, and that's why it's caught. So it's like, oh, game's up.
Yeah. Well, she took off running.
Wow.
Yeah, I took off.
I know you guys probably have a lot more. We came up to an hour, but real quick, Don, what's some of the equipment you like to take out in the field to go camping and stuff? Because you guys go out in some remote wilderness, and you got to be prepared to. So what do you take?
I get a lot of product, and I use anything. Just let me tell you what I use here. I use Berkeley rod reels, fishing line, fishing tackle.
Yeah.
I use Shrey survival knives, Columbia hiking footwear, Coleman tents and stoves, SIG firearms, Zippo lighters and multi-tools. That covers it. But,
Yeah, because you're out.
People making these things for me, making this equipment for me, and it makes life easier when you're out.
Yeah, because you are out in these places, for weeks straight, and all those brands you listed off, they obviously you've tested them yourself and recommend them, so they're the good stuff. People need to have some good gear when you're out in the woods. Have a good tent, have good.
I'm a professional angler, and
exactly, you have a lot of experience.
I use Berkeley Trilene big game line, the Shakespeare and Tiger Ugly sticks, the Berkeley lures and what have you.
Yeah, the ugly sticks.
Survival knives, what have you. But yep. I'm a pretty successful angler, and of course I'm fishing constantly. 2 or 3 days a week too. Sometimes more than that.
And you get some big stuff, and you got a lot of different groups. Name some of your groups where people can find some of your stuff, that your hunting stuff, Bigfoot group.
Okay, well,
your fishing
adventures about Bigfoot and what have you. And then I got a closed group, the Don Peak Wilderness closed group page. We have the Don and Celeste, exploring the wilderness with Don and Celeste page. I have Don Peak North American Wilderness page. I have Go Fishing with Don Peak.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I have Don Peak Wilderness Guiding and Survival. I'm also a wilderness guide. I also teach wilderness survival skills.
Yep.
And what have you there, and teach things like navigation. You gotta be able to navigate to going after Bigfoot. Because not many times, more times than not, you got to go off trail, and you got to know how to navigate. And you need to know these basic survival skills. I teach a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced survival class. And the fishing thing, I'm 3-time Kentucky Master Angler Award recipient. Over 200, well over 200 big fish and trophy fish awards. I've been featured in the Courier Journal. I've been mentioned in the Outdoor Life magazine trophy issues, North American Fishing magazine, several smaller newspapers, and things like that there. Trophy multi-species angler, and freshwater and saltwater. I'm also a successful hunter. But I do a lot outside. I probably spend more of my time outside than I do inside.
And a lot of that stuff, you were a former bodybuilder. You were doing all that before, your Bigfoot encounter.
Right. Bodybuilder. Title.
A lot of years, and so it truly was a shock to you, because you were out in the woods, wilderness, fishing, all this, all the time. And this thing, how many times have these things been watching you?
Yeah, I mean, I was, that's what I do. I go out, that's how I spend my time.
Exactly.
I go out and fish and hunt, hike, camp, and canoe, kayak, boat, things like that, and what have you, all that.
No, you are the real deal, and I recommend everyone to go to his pages and his groups, because you guys can learn a lot, not only about what they're finding with Bigfoot, but how to survive, how to camp, what good gear to use, and how to make things easier when you're out in the wilderness camping. Because if it's easier and more comfortable for you, it's going to be a lot better mindset, and it's going to give you a better drive and push for other things like finding Bigfoot. You don't want to come back to a campsite and everything is harder to do, and every little thing is going to add up for a headache for you. You want to be.
That's right, and learn how to catch those big fish too.
Big fish too. Have a good meal while you're out there too. Exactly.
Big fish and lots of.
Or or an offering to Bigfoot.
There's a lot of skills you need and should keep up on when you're in the woods because, you know, especially if something happens out there, you know.
I'm also a competitive shooter. Shot for 18 years, competitive shooter for 18 years. Been to tactical schools, pistol, rifle, shotgun tactical schools. As a kickboxer, boxer, all that sort of business too. And I teach edge weapons training, knife fighting, just things like that. That's what I do.
And look for Bigfoot now. And you guys are finding a lot of good stuff, and we'll have to have you guys back on a couple months down the road. I know you guys are always out in the field, so I'm sure you have. Hopefully, you get some more stories and some good evidence. Check out you guys' YouTube. It's Don Peak's Wilderness Adventure. Is there something else?
Yeah, and we have Don and Celeste Explorer.
All right, I'll put the links in the description. Everyone check it out because you guys are starting that up. Just started up, but you guys have some good videos, and you're gonna have a lot more good videos coming on there. So.
Yeah, Celeste and I are gonna be like the spearhead of the team. We're gonna go in first, gather as much information in these different locations as we can, and then bring in elements of the team. You know, they'll be following up on the information that we give them.
And all the evidence that you guys got so far, it looks like you guys are heading in the right direction. You guys are doing the right thing, and I can't wait to find what you guys find out there. Can't wait to see it. So,
okay. We appreciate it, Blake.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on the show and telling about your experiences and everything you guys do because it is fascinating. And I've seen you guys been doing this for a while, and I've always been impressed. So I'm glad to finally have you guys on.
Well, we're glad to be on, and
thank you.
And next time we'll try and do it as a live remote where we're out in the field.
Right.
So
yeah.
You could be there with us.
That would be awesome.
We need to do a live. We need to do a live interview when we're out in the field.
Yeah, we had a little technical issues today with StreamYard, but you know it happens. But everything seems to be working good with the audio and stuff, and hearing the encounters and stuff is what's most important. So hopefully next time we will be able to have a live video interview with you guys out in the field. Maybe you have something to show us too.
From a Bigfoot habitat area.
Yeah.
Exactly. So thank you guys again for coming on.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks for everyone for watching the content. I really appreciate everyone who's subscribed and the feedback. So so everyone, I hope I have a good night, and we'll see you back next week. So enjoy.
Thank you.
Good night, Blake.